Hello there, I'm Simon Catt from Arlington Group and Catt Calls. Today, we are in the Sierra Madre, or the Mother Mountains in Mexico. The reason that we're here is gold and silver. The silver is the oldest type of money. It was invented by the Sumerians about 5,400 years ago, and it was called a silver shekel. The history of Mexico is that Mexico, because it has been the largest silver producing country in the world through the last half a millennia, makes Mexico the home of silver money, or the oldest type of money. So Mexico was the mint to the world for the last half a millennia or 500 years or so. The Spanish came to Mexico here. The Spanish conquistadors came to Mexico in 1521. Silver was discovered not far from here in Zacatecas. Today we know that as Fresnillo, and that was in 1546. That was an important silver discovery. It was the origin of the colonial wealth of the Spaniards. And through the 1600s and 1700s, Spain became the richest country, the largest colonial power in the world. It funded their colonial imperialism as an expansion, and it was actually more important than that. It was important in a global context. What happened through the 1600s and through the 1800s is the supply of silver out of Mexico, which started around 1 or 2 million ounces a year in the 1500s, it expanded to tens of millions of ounces a year, and that became the global expansion of the global monetary supply. So silver was the earliest form of money. The Spaniards had pieces of 8. That was the earliest form of a global currency that was accepted across Asia, the Americas, and in Europe. As the supply of silver from Mexico expanded, and so that facilitated global trade, and it actually accelerated the end of feudalism and created what we know as capitalism or mercantilism, global trade today. A lot of that silver, Mexico through the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s was producing as high as 80% of the world's silver, on average about 60%. And that was important because China, under the Ming and the Qing dynasty, built their economy and their money on silver. That managed to contain inflation. They actually defined the taxation obligation of their citizens in terms of silver. And the Chinese and the Asian economies flourished. The Chinese made things and they sold it back to the West. And that facilitated the global trade. And bringing it up to the present day, of course, that's what's happening today. Today, China and India, the Eastern economies, are the most populous and the biggest consumers of silver. China consumes silver mostly for industrial demand. That's going firstly into solar panels. Solar panels consume about 200 million ounces, or about a quarter of the world's silver. India consumes it mainly for jewelry or investment demand. So if you're a young bride in India today, you're buying silver as an investment, and it turns into jewelry, and your family gives you silver for your wedding, and that becomes a source of wealth and savings. So exactly the same as 500 years ago, when silver was first discovered here in Mexico by the Spaniards, still today, silver is super important, but instead of just being money, half of silver demand today is industrial demand. And the reason for that is silver today and always is the most important conductor of electricity and thermal energy. This is the reason that silver is the key, along with copper and other conductors, to the electrical transformation, the electrification of the world. So this is not going to stop anytime soon. If you look at the new Samsung solid-state battery in an EV, it's going to have a kilo of silver. That could mean that there's 50 or 100 million ounces of silver going into EVs by 2030. So the role of silver as an industrial metal has been allied along with its historical monetary use. And that's why silver prices today have started to move. I literally mean today, June the 5th, 2025, silver has broken above its 10 or 15 year technical levels around $35. Today it trades between $35 and $36 an ounce. And the historical highs of silver in 2011 and in 1980 was around $50 an ounce. So the first step for the silver price is to go back there. And if you think about silver as money, well, gold back in 1980 was $800 an ounce, and back in 2011 was around that $900 an ounce. So silver at 35 compared to 50 as it was then is actually still well below its all-time highs, while gold is 4 or 5 times above. So silver has a long way to go, and if you think about the fact that we've been in deficit markets now for the last 4 or 5 years, silver is a 1 billion ounce per year market. Half of it goes into industrial uses, about 200 million ounces goes into solar panels, and it's used as an electrical conductor of energy in EVs and other electronic applications. Will only increase as we need more gadgets and we require more energy. The bottom line is we think silver is going to $100 an ounce because of that combination of industrial and monetary demand. So back to Mexico, we're here in the Sierra Madre, the Mother Mountains. This is the most important source of silver and therefore the most important source of money and electrical energy in the planet. There's about 200 million ounces of silver come each year out of Mexico, and that's, right here, we're in the Sierra Madre. You can see behind me, these mountains, we're in the state of Durango. We're on the Mithril Silver and Gold property today. This is what we think is the most interesting and the most exciting silver and gold exploration play in the world today. Their resource is about 500,000 ounces of gold and silver, creating 7 grams gold equivalent, or that would be 5 grams gold and 140 grams silver. Mithril are just beginning their discovery life cycle, and we think that there'll be many more millions of ounces of gold and silver to come here from Mithril in the Sierra Madre in Durango state in the coming years. Management here previously sold their last company, which was called Palmarejo and Bolognese. They sold that for $1 billion to Kerr back in 2008. We think that is the potential here. The silver price is going to be higher than when Mithril this management group sold Palmarejo to Kerr. So potentially the upside is also higher. So Mexico today produces about 200 million ounces of silver a year. That's about a quarter of the world's silver. If you go back to colonial times, it was producing 1 million or 2 ounces of silver a year. So this is the highest ever production out of Mexico. Silver demand is the highest ever. Through time, as more silver has been required for money initially and more recently in the last 100 years as an industrial metal, the expansion of silver supply from Mexico has increased from 1 million to 2 ounces back in the 1500s to today over 200 million ounces of silver, or about a quarter of the world's primary mined silver each year. So the point is that if you want to be in the silver business, you have to come to Mexico. We've chosen what we think is the most exciting explorer, Mithril Gold and Silver, and there is only one Sierra Madre, which is where most of the world's large silver discoveries have been made. To put that in context, the Fresnillo ore body or district, which was formerly called Zacatecas when it was found in Spanish and colonial times in the 1500s, has found about 2.5 billion ounces of silver. Compare that to BHP's Broken Hill discovery in Australia. That was in 1883, so about 350 years after the Spaniards discovered silver here in the Sierra Madre. That was 1 billion ounces. So the foundations of the world's biggest and most valuable mining company, BHP, was 1 billion ounces of silver in the 1800s. The Mexicans and the Spaniards here at the Fresnillo district found a larger silver discovery, 2.5 billion ounces of silver, or 2.5 times the Australian creation of the world's most valuable mining company here in Mexico. The politics are improving under the current Mexican administration. We think that we're going to see a revival in the fortunes of miners in Mexico, and we think that there's no better place in the world to find silver, and that's proven out in terms of Mexico's annual production of silver. So early days in terms of the silver price journey, $35 an ounce a day. We think it goes to $100 an ounce in the coming months and years. Early days in terms of the discovery life cycle for Mithril, and we're going to take you soon to the Cordero property, which is the best silver development asset in the world. Why is it the best silver development asset? Well, because it's got a reserve with over 300 million ounces of silver, and we're going to take you there next. Thanks for listening. I'm Simon Catt from Catt Calls in Arlington.